Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We're starting off with a story about a grumpy neighbor who made it his mission to destroy a small business, only to end up getting daily messages about peace, love, and forgiveness. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My neighbor told my wife he'd get rid of us, so I helped get him closer to God. My wife and I started our little business about 4 years ago. Honestly, we thought it would just be a small side hustle, something manageable, something we could run comfortably out of our tiny starter location. But it took off fast, faster than either of us ever expected. Within a year, we were buried in orders and had customers lining up out the door, so we did what any sane business owners would do. We moved to a larger premises just around the corner. Apparently, that single act personally offended a man who lived in the adjoining street. You know the type, late 60s, arms always crossed, suspicious of anything newer than a 1994 lawnmower, and convinced the world is going downhill because other people exist near him. The kind of guy who hates change so much that updating his Wi-Fi password would probably trigger a midlife crisis. Well, this man got a bee in his bonnet the size of a grapefruit. He began filing complaint after complaint with the local council about us. Noise complaints, traffic complaints, complaints that the energy around here feels different since they moved in. I wish I were kidding. He even complained once that our business sign looked too modern. He filed so many grievances that the council eventually labeled him a vexatious caller and instructed staff to limit interaction with him. Most people would take that as a hint to calm down. Not him. He wore that label like a badge of honor and kept going. But it didn't end with paperwork. One afternoon, I stepped outside just in time to see him absolutely berating my wife in the parking lot. Full volume, red-faced, spittle-flying rant. Why? Because someone, a random stranger, had parked slightly blocking his driveway. And no matter how many times my wife calmly and politely told him the car didn't belong to us, he just kept going. At one point, he stepped right into her face and yelled, "I'll get rid of you people once and for all," before storming off like a toddler who'd been told no dessert. Now, this is part of the story where instinct kicked in. A not very holy instinct. Specifically, the instinct to throat punch a pensioner. But apparently that's frowned upon in polite society, so I restrained myself. Instead, I went inside, sat down, and asked myself, what would Jesus do? And then I burst out laughing because, let's be honest, the Jesus in my head definitely has a mischievous streak. So I did the next best thing. I found the old guy's phone number, and I subscribed him to every single Jehovah's Witness text service I could find. And let me tell you, the JW organization has a lot of text-based study courses, inspirational messages, daily devotionals, sign-up chains, and follow-up tracks. Dozens, all free, all friendly, all persistent. Every time a new course finished, the messages didn't stop. Oh no, they simply transitioned into ongoing gentle reminders of God's love, biblical quotes, invitations to virtual study groups, and cheerful little notes about living a righteous life. The first day, he probably got 5 or 6 texts. By the end of the week, he was probably approaching 30. And the best part, you can't block them without responding. And responding confirms the number is active, which sends more content. I don't know exactly when he realized someone had signed him up for the full JW experience, but I can make an educated guess, because suddenly the daily harassment, the glaring, the stomping past our business, muttering under his breath, it all stopped completely. He started avoiding us, he wouldn't make eye contact, he wouldn't come near our driveway. He even crossed the street one day just to stay farther away from our front door. It was glorious. We never got another complaint from him, not one. And to this day, I like to imagine him sitting in his recliner, phone buzzing nonstop with messages about kindness, peace, forgiveness. And maybe, just maybe, he's finally finding some. All thanks to the Lord's work. The fact that these services are designed so that you can't easily block them, that responding only pulls you in deeper, is the killer feature. It's a perfectly engineered feedback loop of annoyance. He was stuck in a spiritual Chinese finger trap. Every time he tried to get out, he just tightened its grip. And our second story. Homeowner insisted I deliver his lumber to a swampy backyard. I work for a lumber company delivering everything from supplies for building a house to additions, decks. This happened in a New England state that had experienced torrential rain for 3 to 4 days prior to my delivery. At first, I knock on the door. The homeowner's there. I ask where they want the deck delivered, a pallet of concrete to go in the garage, and the lumber decking material to the back of the house where it'll be built. I walk to the area with the homeowner and see standing water. I point out that my forklift is very heavy and will sink by where he asked for the material. At first, he seemed to understand that the machine will leave trenches on the property. Told him I'd drop the material parallel to the house. He then started with I'm the customer and I want it delivered here. He then implied that I was lazy and didn't want to do my job. Fair enough. We had waivers that said the lumber company was not responsible for damage to delivery spots. Gladly signs and tells me to do my job. You got it. Due to the length of the material, I had to go sideways to deliver. To go from sideways motion to standard movement meant the wheels changed from sideways to forward. So I get to the area he wants the lumber, and I turn the wheels. The whole effing thing sinks to the point that the lumber is on the ground. I tried to use the forks and turning the wheels to get out. No luck, sinking deeper. So I'm about 8 feet by 4 feet stuck in the ground. Try all the various ways to move the machine, but go deeper. Point out to the homeowner that I'll need help getting out. What's not on the waiver is their liability to tow, so I called my home base for help getting out. Owner's super pissed at homeowner. Fair enough. Wait about an hour, and then another truck shows up to pull me out. They pull onto the lawn and run chains to my forklift. They're parallel to the garage. We hook the forklift to the chain. The driver of the truck goes really slow. Unfortunately, it pulls the forklift sideways before it catches solid ground. Another roughly 4 feet before it catches solid ground. It put a grate on the trench as I was pulled out. The effing thing was World War I worthy trench. Hand the homeowner the receipt and load up my machine. The blank stare of the homeowner was a truly great thing. He signed the waiver. It always amazes me when there's a guy demanding that you sign a waiver releasing him from liability for damage. These idiots always seem to double down and sign away, like you're literally giving him a blank check to destroy your crap, consequence-free, while simultaneously being a jerk about it. How stupid are these people? And our next story. I was in a customs line in my wheelchair, just minding my own business while the line crawled forward. Anyone who's been through customs knows how slow those lines move. You shift a few inches every couple of minutes and try not to lose your sanity. Out of nowhere, my wheelchair lurched backward, hard enough to send a sharp bolt of pain up my spine, the kind of pain that makes your vision go white for a second. I whipped my head around and realized the woman behind me had grabbed onto the handle of my wheelchair and was leaning her entire body weight on it, and she wasn't small. The pressure twisted the frame and jolted me like someone had kicked the back of the chair. My first instinct was to assume she tripped or lost her balance or grabbed me reflexively. It happens, so I didn't say anything, just rolled forward as far as I could to put some space between us. A few minutes later, it happened again. Same painful jolt, same sensation, like someone just yanked the chair backward. This time, I turned fully around, ready to ask if she was okay, only to see her looking off into the distance like she had absolutely no idea she'd just shoved half her body weight onto a disabled stranger. I said, "Excuse me, please stop grabbing my wheelchair. It hurts my back." She scoffed, then said, "Well, this line is long and my feet hurt." I stared at her. "This is my wheelchair. It's an extension of my body. Don't touch it again." She rolled her eyes like I was the unreasonable one. We inched forward again, 10 more minutes of silence, and I'm starting to think maybe she understood, maybe the embarrassment sunk in, maybe we were done. Nope, she did it a third time. This time I spun around so fast that the people next to us jumped. "Every time you do that, it causes me pain," I snapped. "Would it be okay for me to grab onto you to hold myself up? Don't effing touch me again." She immediately started sputtering excuses about her feet, about the long line, about how people stand like this all the time. She genuinely seemed shocked that I wasn't just accepting her using my wheelchair as a personal handrail. At this point, my husband, who was about 10 feet ahead because I had hit the bathroom before joining the line, heard me raise my voice. He turned around, saw what was happening, and came jogging back immediately. He planted himself between me and her like a human barricade. No words needed, just pure don't you dare energy. A staff member must have noticed the commotion because they walked over and asked what was going on. I explained through gritted teeth that this woman kept grabbing my wheelchair despite being told repeatedly to stop because it caused me physical pain. The woman immediately jumped in with some dramatic story about how her feet were killing her and how she had no choice. The staff member, bless their heart, just looked at her and said, "Ma'am, you can't use someone's wheelchair like that. If you need support, we can get you a chair." So they brought her a chair. Not to sit in, oh no, she refused. She wanted it to lean on, which tells you everything you need to know. If her feet were truly in agony, she would have sat down. She wanted a prop, not relief. And of course, once she had her new leaning post, she suddenly started groaning dramatically every time the line moved. Loud sighs, over-the-top limping, full theatrics, none of which she'd been doing before being told off. It was pure showmanship, like she wanted to prove she was the real victim here. My husband stayed behind me for the rest of the line to keep distance between us. I could still hear her grumbling behind him like I had somehow wronged her. People like that blow my mind. I'm sorry your feet hurt, but I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not using it because I'm tired. I'm using it because my legs don't work. It's not a public leaning post. It's not a rail. And it's not a convenience for anyone but me. Some people have absolutely no awareness. Or worse, they do and they just don't care. Oh, this one actually made me angry. There's a level of disrespect that goes beyond clueless. It becomes hostile. Grabbing someone's wheelchair is basically grabbing their body. It's invasive. It's painful. And this woman did it 3 times, each time pretending she didn't know what she was doing. No apology, no embarrassment, just pure attitude. And our last story. She yelled at us for stepping on her grass. I got the city to pour concrete over it. I used to live in a quiet horseshoe-shaped neighborhood, the kind of place where the houses were built in the 80s and most of the original owners still lived there. No sidewalks, just a narrow street bordered by grass. My wife and I walked our dogs and kids along that loop almost every day. Normally, it wasn't a problem. If a car came, we'd step into the grass until it passed. Easy, safe, normal. Except for one resident, Natalie. Natalie lived about halfway down the loop in an aggressively beige house with a flag that said, "Bless this home," and a personality that said, "Absolutely not." She was a deacon at the church we attended, and the kind of church lady who acted sweet when the pastor was around, but turned into a gremlin the second she stepped onto her lawn. Almost every time we passed, she found something to complain about. Our dogs breathed too loudly. Our stroller wheels were too close to her property. The one time she told my wife her joggers were immodest while wearing a shirt that said "Love thy neighbor" in glitter vinyl. But the day everything changed started like any other. We were walking the kids around the loop when a car came up behind us. I guided the kids onto the grass to wait for it to pass, and of course it had to be Natalie's lawn. Before the tires even rolled by, we heard the familiar screech. "What do you think you're doing? Get your kids off my grass." I turned around and said, "We're just stepping aside until the car passes. We'll be gone in 3 seconds. She did not like that answer. She began shouting, waving her hands like she was conducting an invisible orchestra of rage, then grabbed her garden hose and sprayed us. Actually sprayed us. Water blasted the dogs, the kids, my wife, me, while she yelled about disrespect and boundaries. We rushed the kids home and told them they did nothing wrong. After that, we walked on the opposite side of the street exclusively, even if it meant stepping into prickly weeds instead of her precious patch of grass. 2 weeks later, the universe handed me a gift. Natalie and her husband had a new shed installed, and per township rules, they had to get the property surveyed. As I drove by, I noticed the survey stakes. They weren't on the edge of the grass. They were a good 10 feet back from the road. That seemed odd. Curious, I asked a friend of mine who works in surveying to check our property line. Sure enough, ours was only about 3 feet from the road. That meant the entire stretch in front of Natalie's house, the grass she screamed at us about, wasn't really hers in the way she acted. It was township right-of-way. We went digging through old development plans at City Hall, and what we found was hilarious. The neighborhood had originally been designed to include sidewalks. The entire 10-foot strip in front of the houses on Natalie's side of the street, curb, grass, and sidewalk, was township property. The sidewalk had simply never been installed. So being a perfectly sane and reasonable adult, I requested the township finally put in the sidewalk. They sent letters to all residents, scheduled a hearing, and opened the floor for public comment. Most neighbors didn't care or openly supported it. Sidewalks meant safer walks and more accessible routes for kids. Natalie, however, was a spectacle. She stormed into the meeting like she was marching into battle. She ranted about property rights, government overreach, and how a sidewalk would invite hooligans. The township officials politely reminded her the land wasn't hers to begin with and that the development was originally approved with sidewalks. She left in a cloud of indignation. A month later, construction began. Machines dug up the right-of-way along the horseshoe. When the crew reached Natalie's house, they stopped. She had planted an elaborate landscaping setup across the entire strip. Flowers, shrubs, a bird bath, even a little tree. All of it was sitting directly on township land. The workers told her she needed to remove it. She refused. She screamed. She threatened lawsuits. She called the township corrupt. The township fined her and removed everything themselves. 2 weeks after the sidewalk was fully installed, we listed our house. We'd already planned to move to a bigger place. The sidewalk drama just added a poetic farewell. We drive through the old neighborhood, sometimes to visit friends. The sidewalk looks great. Kids bike on it. Dog walkers use it. And right in front of Natalie's house runs a perfect stretch of crisp concrete. She still glares at us when we pass. And according to my mom, who still sees her at church, Natalie hasn't forgiven us for destroying her lawn. Considering she once sprayed my kids with a garden hose, I sleep pretty well at night. The beauty's how she wrote her own ending. All that rage, all that screaming, and the thing she protected most wasn't even hers. Watching the township bulldoze her precious bird bath must have felt like the season finale of a drama only she thought she was starring in. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.